We are live, StrongIsland.com. It's Strong Island Scene.
Yeah, it's my favorite show.
Are you all right? The light's blinding you?
No.
I should have turned them on early, get you used to them.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm used to the bright lights of Broadway. It's the story of my life.
All right, well.
So, Bob, here we go again. How have you been? You been good?
I have been insanely busy. All good, though. Can't complain, but just really busy, really busy.
Okay, me too. All kinds of things going on. And, of course, the Max's Kansas City album up on iTunes and Amazon.com from Strong Island Rock's Jimi, LaLumia, and the Psychotic Frogs 2.0 live at Max's. We want you all to join in, by the way. Let's give them the info. You can call us at 516-945-9099. That number again is 516-945-9099 to participate in the program.
There you go.
Before it becomes archived on YouTube.
You can also hit us up in the chat room if you're shy.
Skype us on StrongIsland.com for video calls. What do? We put that picture up on the...
We can do that.
Oh, my
you
goodness.
may not see it that great, but yeah.
That might be frightening. You can like us on Facebook at Facebook.com and follow us on Twitter at StrongIslandNY. Mm-hmm. And check out the official store, shop.strongisland.com, to get some of the Strong Island apparel, which more and more chic Long Islanders are being seen wearing around town.
That's true.
So, Bob, did you go see the Hunger Games yet?
No, I did not. I've been hearing a lot about it. I don't know too much about it, to be honest with you, but I've been hearing about it. I've been hearing a lot of the theme, children killing children or something. Could you explain it to me?
Children killing children.
Yo, that's a hit record right there.
Are the bloodthirstiest children in the world.
There you go.
With an arrow, a poison bow and arrow. And yet cleaning up at the box office this weekend, 150 million box office. It was like it's the third biggest opening of all time.
So what's it about? What's the premise?
It's American Idol with blood. It takes place in a future world. I don't really have to explain because I imagine everybody's seen it by now except us. It's the logical equivalent of where reality TV will go from the earliest days of reality TV. It's a future world, an apocalyptic post-America, which is now called I keep saying Pan Am, but it's not, it's Panem. But I think it would have been groovier if they had named it after a defunct airline, so I will refer to it as Pan Am, where the ultra-rich sit back and watch the poor people kill each other to get food. Thus, the Hunger Games. It's where American Idol type programming will be 50 years from now, and we'll be reporting on it 50 years from now, probably from right here. But it's huge, and again, it's a book-based thing the way Twilight was, and it's the latest thing. And the soundtrack album went to #1, which is, I guess, the way to really sell music and to sell records these days is to have that soundtrack album loaded with the little sound bites that occur in the movie, because you never really get to hear an entire song unless it's a chosen song at the end credits, and I don't know if people really stay for the end credits, but it is a huge, smashing success. I think we should do that maybe on Strong Island, your series of TV shows, have people come on and face off against each other and kill each other, and whoever comes out on top gets to host their own show the following week.
That's really worth it.
No? Yeah, okay. All right, but that's the Hunger Games. That's what's happening right now in America. It's the latest pop culture phenomena, and I will see it when it winds up on Netflix. No, I might go.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
How frequently do you go to the motion picture theater?
I have a friend who gets a lot of movies, like screeners and stuff.
Oh, you mean the people that sit in the theater with their...
Yeah, it's
camera on their shoulder, and you watch people's heads.
That's a bootleg. That's a straight up bootleg. But basically, when they make movies, there's certain digital copies that are out there that they call screeners, which they give to magazines and they submit for awards.
Right,
and what happens, they always end up in someone else's hands. So basically, the bootleggers, you'll notice they'll have bootlegs and they'll have screeners. and I watch the screeners.
So you're talking about pirate copies, really?
It says like maybe 5 times it'll come up and it'll say property of Paramount Pictures or something like that, and then it goes away.
So are these guys selling them? Do they?
Oh yeah, they sell
duplicate them. Wow.
Yeah, they duplicate them along with their bootlegs. They have bootlegs and they have screeners. So I just say what screeners you got, because they're perfect. They're literally perfect.
Welcome to showbiz. Well, I guess that goes to prove, at least as far as the movie business is concerned, that even with all this pirating and all this bootlegging going on, that a film can still break all kinds of records, because this was the biggest non-sequel film financially in its opening week. The only 2 bigger ones were, I believe, the final Harry Potter and The Dark Knight, the second Batman, which were sequels to already super successful movies. So obviously the movie business knows what they're doing.
Well, I think sometimes that can help, because if the buzz is good and it gets out there, when the movie finally comes out, everybody already knows it's good.
Well, the buzz is based on books, just like with Twilight. So it's not like a movie that just came out of nowhere. It had a built-in fan base from the book, just as Twilight did. And then a very extensive marketing campaign, no matter where you turned, picking up a magazine, turning on TV, what have you, talk shows, Hunger Games. You have to do mass saturation now to really cut through all the clutter, because there's just so much out there vying for the consumer's dollar. But the movie industry isn't the only thing that's still doing well. We got reports that the U.S. record business had a 0.2% rise in the past year. Now, that may sound minuscule, 0.2% up, but it's the first time that the music business has been up in, I think, about 7 or possibly 8 years. I don't know exactly. I think it was in the early 2000s that was the last time that it was at that point. So people are now adapting to actually spending money on digital downloads at places like iTunes and Amazon, where they go to buy their Psychotic Frogs digital album on Strong Island Rocks. And of course, physical product is selling once again. A lot of them attributed to Adele single-handedly being responsible for that 0.2% rise, because she sold about 8 or 9 million CDs in America, which we were told after the advent of digital would never happen again, that there would not be those kind of numbers anymore. And obviously there are, when there's a similarly well-orchestrated campaign, and Adele was everywhere, and people that normally don't talk about music have to know the name Adele, just as they once had to know the name Celine Dion, or they once had to know the name Whitney Houston or Barbra Streisand or what have you, or the Beatles. So those type of campaigns still work, and people will still go out and buy the product because they want to own it. So physical product is far from dead, and that's why we have a CD version of the Psychotic Frogs as well that will be available soon. But enough plugging of my product, which you all should be buying on Strong Island Rocks. Vinyl is also rising. Vinyl is growing by leaps and bounds. Part of it, I think, is fueled by the techno resurge, the dance music resurge, and the fascination with DJing. And everybody's a DJ now, and everybody idolizes DJs. And Paulie D now has his own half-hour offshoot from Jersey Shore. Have you watched Paulie D?
No, I haven't.
It's basically a half hour of him branching out after they leave the shore, and he wants to pursue his DJ business, and he miraculously gets a phone call from Las Vegas in one of the big rooms. I forget exactly which one it is, but regardless, they're waiting and biting their fingernails. Is he going to get this residency at this room in the first half hour? And of course, by the end of the episode, he does, and everybody pops open champagne. And then he's in the booth, and he's doing the big night, and one side of the system goes out, and the speakers go out, and then his crew puts it together, and he has a successful night, and they offer him the residency there. Mm-hmm. Again, it's MTV, kids, so I love Paulie D. I think he's wonderful. Did he get the residency because of his DJ skills? Or did he get the residency because he's on MTV and people will go because he's on MTV?
That's what they're hoping for.
And that's not to take anything away from Paulie D's skills, but they create this nail-biting thing in the first episode of, will they want me? Will I get the job? Of course you're going to get the job. You're on MTV. Give me a break. Of course you're getting the job.
It's not all about talent. It's clubs today, the promoters, they
it's name brand value.
Exactly. They want to bring in a DJ, bring in names for that evening that bring in people to the door.
Exactly. And what better than a popular youth-oriented TV show? Even though Jersey Shore's numbers did go down a little this past season, they seem to be peaking a bit, so I don't know. And, of course, Snooki's pregnant now, so that's going to be another wrinkle in the fabric of their going out partying and drinking. Are you responsible for that?
No, thank God.
Oh, okay. Well, we could have used the publicity, Bob, on Strong Island Scene. You got to knock somebody up, you know. Somebody famous.
I got to knock exactly famous.
Somebody famous, exactly.
All right,
well,
I'll work on it.
But you know, it's all about branding. It's all about associating with brands and what have you. As Mary J. Blige has a little bit of a firestorm going on right now because she is the Burger Queen. She has linked up with Burger King and for some reason apparently is getting a lot of flack for selling out. I don't know if we're capable of selling out in 2012. I think everybody at this stage of the game has sold out and is attaching themselves to brands and sneakers and cars and soft drinks. So I don't know. What do you think that's all about with why they're particularly going after her? I don't get it.
I don't know. And I have not seen, she's doing commercials. I haven't seen any.
It's brand new and they're just launching it and she's going to be the voice and the face of Burger King. I don't know. How much of an astounding...
is it maybe because it's the food business and Burger King's not the healthiest thing, or is it just the act of selling out?
Well, because she appeals to a youngish audience. She's not exactly a teen star anymore at this stage of the game, but she's appealing to people who grew up with her that are, I guess, in their late 20s or 30s now when she first came along. What was that in the...
When she first came out, I was young, too. I mean, she's not...
But she came to real superstar proximity on television, not with like the 911 album.
Oh, because that's what I'm thinking.
No, that's not what she was not a superstar that was being on the Tonight Show with David Letterman.
You're right.
She was a trouble-making girl. She was a tough cookie, as I recall. And then there was a complete image makeover because, speaking of diva, you'd never know it now when you see her on TV, but she was someone you did not want to make angry, or at least that was the image. And I believe, from what I heard at the time when I had the Record Connection, was talking to the label guys at, I think she was on MCA, or I forget what she was affiliated with one of the labels. Or I don't remember who picked her up. If it was Puff Daddy back when he was still called that, or someone or other. But she has kind of reconstituted her image, and she's user-friendly now. And she's the queen of Burger King. And the reality is everybody does endorsements, and hip-hop really went totally to the edge with endorsements and making no big deal about it. We want the money. We want to get paid. We want the bling. We want shiny things. We want big fancy cars. We want to be stars, you know, type of deal. I think I just came up with a hot new rhyme there.
Yeah, well, we got it. It's recorded. We'll check it out.
Okay, cool. Put a beat behind it. Put it out. That's what we do around here. That's my contribution to the Strong Island universe. But Mary J. Blige, we wish you all the best of luck, and have a whopper on me, honey, anytime. Speaking of branching out, are you a fan of Ryan Seacrest of American Idol and E! Entertainment?
He's all right. I have nothing against him.
He is really becoming as mainstream as possible. Not that American Idol wasn't mainstream, but nothing becomes more mainstream than the Today Show, and he's going to be on the Today Show now.
Do you think so? Because Matt Lauer interviewed him. I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday, but they talked about that.
He was joking about maybe I'll do the weather. I don't really watch the Today Show because I'm up early in the morning in the real world with a real job, as we know. I'm not just the superstar that you all read about online and in books and magazines, but I actually have a real day job too. And so I don't really get to see Today or Good Morning America.
Yeah,
but
and that's early, too. That's early in the morning. But,
he is very realistic enough to know that for most people, not myself, but for most people, there is an aging process that takes place. And at a certain point, for many people, you are beyond a certain target audience. So I think he's preparing for his rocking chair days when the next Ryan Seacrest comes along, that he can be on the Today Show in the morning and interview Grandma and ask people in the street if they know who the 32nd president was and all the nonsense that they do on these shows.
All these rumors are starting because Matt Lauer's contract is up soon, and there hasn't been anything new announced. So this is where these rumors are starting. But I don't think he's going to get replaced. Not right now, no.
All these rumors are starting because we start them right here on Strong Island Scene. If it's not a rumor yet, it will be by the time the hour is over. But again, Ryan, it may be time to move on. You're getting a little long in the tooth, as they say. So the Today Show and the Early Bird Special await you. Age is just a number, though. That's being proved right now by one of my Motown favorites. Do you watch Dancing with the Stars? I know you're very, very busy here with the Strong Island Empire.
I have shows every night.
You have a bustling entertainment empire here, which you all should check out. I know a lot of you like to tune in to just see me bantering with young LaSerra over here, but there are many, many other programs on Strong Island TV. You should check them all out. But I'm not on all of them. I'm just doing my exclusive once-a-month appearance, so I have plenty of time to watch American Idol and The Voice and Dancing with the Stars, where one of my old Motown faves, Gladys Knight, is holding her own right now, and she's well into her 60s. I think she has to be at least 67 or 68. And again, is that selling out? I don't know. You do what you have to do to remain prominent. And for those of you in the entertainment business, as recording artists or dancers or DJs, you have to constantly find ways to expand your brand, and don't think that anything is beneath you, because you really want to be out there as much as you can. It's a very competitive world, this technology world that we live in now.
If you could be on Dancing with the Stars, if they asked you, would you go?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know how long I would last because
man.
I used to dance to my band on stage at Max's in giant platform shoes, doing a mean hully gully and a shing-a-ling, but I don't really know about the ballroom thing. I don't know how that would.
And you got to be versatile, but
well, I am.
You got to learn that fast too, though. You know, those moves you got to remember.
Oh, you mean dancing wise? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a quick learner, but. We send all our best to Gladys Knight. We saw another Motown legend in the audience watching her, Miss Mary Wilson, who apparently is lining herself up for next season from the Supremes, that is. Now, of course, the Supremes' biggest competitors in the 1960s. You notice how I lace all this stuff together so effortlessly, and it's just like a hodgepodge? Their biggest competitor in the 1960s was a group called the Beatles, who are still kind of prominent. And one thing that I found really interesting and kind of bizarre is the sons of the Beatles are talking about doing a Beatles 2.0, I guess. Paul McCartney's son. Well, have you seen this?
Yes, I actually did. Everybody except one of them. I forget.
Ringo Starr's son.
Yeah, he doesn't want to.
Zach is already an established drummer.
Yeah.
And
he also does photography or art. He's really so I guess his heart is not really into it. I guess,
right?
But
right.
He seems to be the one holdout. But I heard about that. They're all interested in doing it apparently.
And Beatle fans are so zany that they're probably excited about this.
Well,
and I'm sorry, I'm a Beatles fan from day one. And I was very involved in Beatle Fest, which continues to go on from its earliest inception in 1974 and 1975 with Mark Lapidus when he first did it at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. I was integral in that for the first year or two until punk came around and I started a band and other circumstances. But really, John Lennon's son, Sean, is a talented musical guy. That's his child with Yoko, and he's had records out, but nothing that's really made a huge dent. And George Harrison's son, I think, is called Danny, and McCartney's son, I don't recall what his name was. I saw him online, but the very idea just seems zany to me. Wouldn't it be better if a song came out that was like a really strong song first?
An original song, you
An original song
from them,
and then you found out that that's who it was, because by announcing this before there's anything, it's kind of like, oh, isn't that cute? The kids want to do something.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Well, I think it would work if they did it as a once in a lifetime little tour reunion.
But based on what? What have they done?
I don't know. But
who are they?
They're apparently all musicians.
They spawned from the sperm of famous musicians. Doesn't necessarily mean
not just famous musicians. If they can play the music and they can sound somewhat similar.
Oh, you think that's what they're going to go for, like the ultimate
Why not?
Beatles tribute band?
Exactly. Why not? Just once. Just do it once. A big
Something
tribute.
tells me I don't think that's what they have in mind. I
don't think it's going to happen.
And they may have the creativity. They may have the creative ability to do it. But I heard that and I was like, oh my goodness, that is really, really zany. You know, it's hard enough to keep a band together. The Beatles couldn't even stay together beyond a certain point. And the Sons now. And also, let's face reality, the Beatles was so amazing, like so many groups in the 1960s, because they came from nothing. And so their creativity and the music that came out came from guys that were looking for the next gig, that weren't exactly rolling in the dough, that were doing cover versions of old Motown songs and Isley Brothers songs at the beginning and struggled, which is really where you find who you are when you're trying to make any kind of dent in the entertainment business. So when the children of privilege, who've never had to come up, and I'm not knocking any of you kids of privilege, you're allowed to have been born into wealthy families, but you're not going to have that same hunger. There we go back to the Hunger Games again, because you don't have to. You're financially secure. You don't have to be doing these things. So I think at best, and maybe they'll prove me wrong, and maybe they will shock me, and if they do, I'll be the first to say it, but something tells me this is just going to be like a cutesy, isn't that so cute, and the boys are together, and I'm sure X amount of Beatle fans will support it just because that's how Beatle fans are. That's how real extreme fans of anything are. How dare you challenge? Why? It's the spawn of genius, blah, blah, blah.
And then you have the younger kids who may be familiar with the songs, and then they can kind of accept them a little because they're more their age. I don't know. I think it would work.
Well, I certainly hope they're not going to come out with the Sgt. Pepper's outfits on and do Penny Lane or Strawberry Fields, because I think I'll just lose my marbles if that happens. I think that'll be the end of the road for me. I don't think that's what they're talking about, though.
Speaking of the Beatles, what's the group Simon Cowell? He's got these 4 or 5 young kids from England who are really, really.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the Beatles were a teen mania attraction at the start. They weren't really geniuses. They were good looking. They were new. They were full of energies. They made girls scream and go nuts like Backstreet Boys and all. And teen mania is back right now, spurred on by people like Simon Cowell, among other acts that are out there that are rocking the charts, just like it was. I saw a headline online where they said we're going to party like it's 1999, because in 1999 you had Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, 98 Degrees, Mandy Moore. Now we have Justin Bieber, Carly Rae Jepsen, I think her name is, The Wanted, and One Direction is who you're talking about. Okay. And they're dominating the charts, and it's the same old, which, as I've said, decade after decade, as long as couples are giving birth to young females, when those young females reach the age of maybe 11, 12, 13, or 14, and their hormones are just starting to kick in, they're going to want somebody to scream at and buy pictures of and stick on their wall. And, I got into this debate at the end of the 1970s. in the late 80s, and then all of a sudden New Kids on the Block came along, and Tiffany and Debbie Gibson. The end of the 90s, it was never going to happen again because we've got Nirvana and all this, and all of that was swept away by Spice Girls and Hanson and Backstreet. And here we are again. Here we are again. After hip-hop, after all these extreme punk and hardcore punk, we've got Justin Bieber selling, I think, 300,000 singles in his first 24 hours of his brand new, he's got a brand new track, I think it's called Girlfriend, where he sounds somewhat similar to Justin Timberlake, a little bit vocally, a little too much so. Be yourself, kid. But teen mania is rampant. So what point did you want to bring up with that Simon Cowell manufactured machine thing, which is really what pop music has always been. It's always been, you know, we choose, even the Beatles. And I always get in trouble when I say it. Brian Epstein, a big Queenie gay manager who shoved them into tight leather pants and the haircuts and the leather jackets at the beginning and then cleaned them up for Ed Sullivan, and was coming from that point of view and selling them to young girls because he knew what the young girls liked. And totally manufactured. Totally manufactured. Then, of course, they broke away from that and became the creative force that they became by late 1965, but initially they were teen pop just as much as anything else.
You know, there's a time period where, I don't know what years it was, when the Beatles got really, I guess, experimental and into a little bit of the psychedelic realm.
The Beatles? Well, they ushered it in. They ushered it in by the Sgt. Pepper album and by Strawberry Fields and what have you, because what the Beatles did is kind of like what Justin Timberlake, an artist like that, did with hip-hop. They took a raw idiom and watered it down for a mass audience. Vanilla Ice is a good example of that, because no hip-hop artist was selling 10 million CDs when Vanilla Ice suddenly sold 10 million CDs, because he was the acceptable face of this watered-down version of hip-hop, which was exploding. But mommy and daddy in the suburbs and in the middle of the country and in the Midwest were not going to let little Johnny or little Judy come home with the NWA album, or even something less, you know, like LL Cool J or what have you. But they would allow Vanilla Ice, because he's a good-looking white guy with, you know, blonde hair, and he's basically harmless. And he's like, but that did open the door. It's Pandora's box opening once again for all those young kids who got introduced by Vanilla to hip-hop as they got a year or two older and got their taste of hip-hop from him. That kind of phenomena is really what's responsible for opening the doors. And the Beatles were being exposed to the scene in the Village downtown in Manhattan with bands like the Fugs, the Mothers of Invention with Frank Zappa, the Holy Modal Rounders, the Hippies out on the West Coast. And they took elements from all of that and stirred it into a pot with their usual Paul McCartney pop thing and made it acceptable. And then the kids got so turned on to the real hippie thing that they kind of actually moved away from the Beatles, and the Beatles didn't tour. And they would just occasionally release an album in the last several years of their existence. And Woodstock came along, and the Monterey Pop Festival, none of which they participated in. So they kind of opened the door.
So when they were clean cut when they first came over, and then they
were teen stars, just like One Direction and Bieber and all those guys are now. And then eventually, not all of them stay so clean cut. Who knows what Justin Bieber will be doing? What we'll be reading in the Inquirer about him 5 years from now. I mean, Bobby Brown and New Edition were heartthrobs. They were teen stars. Look how wonderful, how cute, how adorable, blah, blah.
You never know.
And then guess what? People grow up, they have money, they have fame, they can do whatever they want. And I would say keep an eye on this Bieber kid 5 years from now. That's all I got to say. I hope I'm not wishing anything on anybody, but I've been around a long time.
Well,
I've watched the cycle, and I have no reason to believe. Once in a blue moon. I mean, who would have expected? You know, our last episode was a very well-received episode that people are still watching and talking about, the Whitney Houston episode. And she's really the last person that at the time that she broke through that I would have ever expected to wind up in the situation that she wound up in.
Right.
But I also have been around long enough to witness what fame and money and power does to people, and it puts them somewhere else, and they're surrounded by people yesing them to death, and no one ever says no to them, and they can get whatever they want, and it's a blessing and it's a curse. And so I don't know, with this teen Orama thing, a lot of Michael Jackson, I mean...
Yeah, you're right.
If he had stayed with Motown Records, he'd probably still be alive. But he fled. He went to Epic. He was able to go out in directions that he wanted to go. Epic, Sony is a gigantic company, and he kind of dovetailed with the popularity of MTV and became the biggest thing in the universe. And then we all know what happened from that point. Which, one of the things that I watched in this past month. I don't know if you have TV One. Do you get TV One? On your cable?
Fios? Yes, I do.
It's TV One. It's an R&B. It's an African-American oriented station.
Maybe not.
And they have a series on there called Unsung. Unsung as in the unsung heroes who made a dent and you just don't hear about them anymore. And this past month's Unsung was David Ruffen. You know who that is?
It sounds so familiar.
He was the lead singer of The Temptations.
Okay.
And that movie still is on VH1. Along with the Jackson 5 movie all the time. And after watching it, I realized I didn't even have his solo album with I'm Gonna Walk Away from Love, and My Whole World Ended. He became a huge, huge star in the 60s. He didn't have the mass exposure that we have now because we didn't have the media and the technology. But he became too big for his britches. He got kicked out of the group. He got all into drugs and beating women up and what have you. And supposedly died in a crack house, although they claim that did not happen a decade or two ago. And it's that rise and fall from absolutely nothing, because they show his story from Tennessee or Alabama or wherever he came from, almost basically an orphan and penniless, to that big rise. And it's really rough. It's a rough business, and the success for a lot of people is really the roughest part. It's really the roughest part. But those of you who have TV One, I would really recommend you check out Unsung and go online where you can watch some of these episodes. I believe you could probably check the David Ruffin episode out online right now. It's a great history piece to watch, and lots of the great Temptation songs are highlighted in there as well. But some Motown artists, though, do really well. Lionel Richie, who more recently was famous for being the father of Nicole Richie with Paris Hilton. That's really what he had been kind of relegated to. Just had a #1 a past week or so ago on Amazon with Tuskegee, which is a country and western album.
Wow. The whole album? He did
the whole album is duets with Blake Shelton and Shania Twain and you name it, everybody of any importance in country. And the reality is he was at Motown in the 80s, one of the biggest stars at Motown when he went solo after he left the Commodores. And he had songs like Easy Like Sunday Morning and all that, which Kenny Rogers, I think, recorded and had a hit with. Or Kenny Rogers did Lady.
Lady, yeah.
The ballad Lady, which was a Lionel Richie composition. So he always had that country thing going on. And it seems that now he has resuscitated his career. And there's various ways, if you want to stay in the business and in the industry, as you well know, you have to follow the twists and turns. You have to stay current. You can keep your feet rooted in what your legacy is, but you have to find ways to keep reinventing yourself.
Absolutely.
And he certainly did, because he battled it out for the top of the charts with the Wonder Girl, Madonna. And suddenly we didn't know if it was 1982 or 2012, which is how many decades? That's
20 years.
20 years.
30 years.
30 years, right?
Yeah,
30 years.
30
30 years ago, if you look it up, Madonna was fighting it out with Lionel Richie when he had his All Night Long, and his 80s stuff going right into the mid-80s, and she was the up-and-coming new star. And nothing has changed, kids, because Madonna this past week went to #1 with her MDNA album. Is it MDNA? You're the specialist on that, right?
I think it's MDNA.
Like I should talk with my drugs shirt on. But, yeah, Lionel and Madonna. That tells you something right there about physical sales and CDs when you support the artist you like. And I think the 80s going into the 90s was really the last point where people showed their support for an artist by actually not stealing or bootlegging or illegally downloading, but supporting the artist, which you do when you buy their album, when you put your money where your mouth is. And the proof is in the pudding of Lionel Richie and Madonna in the year 2012 battling it out for the #1 spot on the album chart. What do you think of that?
That's amazing. And you know what's even more amazing? Do you remember back in the day after Lionel Richie had his string of tremendous hits in the 80s, he disappeared for like 15 years. Do you remember the joke was, where is Lionel Richie? Where's Lionel Richie? This guy disappeared off the face of the earth for over a decade. Nobody knew where he was. Nobody talked to him. Nobody heard from him.
I think part of that was personal issues with his wife. I don't recall the scandal at the time.
Yeah,
there was battling with the wife, and there was also, but I mean, that doesn't really stop people from, I mean, Chris Brown's doing just fine. And I mean,
no, but even at the time, you didn't really hear too much scandals about him, but just people really didn't know.
There was something. I can't recall, but he was in the tabloids. Not that that would affect, like I said, that would not affect, you know, people can still write, they could still have hits when, well, that's going on. We've seen many examples of that. Right. But yeah, he did back off, as a lot of the old school R&B people did, and I think part of that was the advent of the new breed, and as hip-hop came in, and even the R&B, knocking the boots, things like that, became a bit more graphic and a bit more than what artists like Lionel Richie was serving up in the old days. And I don't think they really wanted to adjust to the level of, you know, the really hardcore, even hardcore R&B in terms of the subject matter and the things that they dealt with in songs. A lot of people from back in the day just chose not to participate, but everything seems to come around if you stay in the game. And Madonna, who everybody was banging on, well, besides the, besides
no pun intended.
Besides the obvious, when they heard she was going to do the Super Bowl and a new album was coming out, they're like, nobody's going to buy that album, and she's going to bomb at the Super Bowl, and she's going to this, and she's going to do that. And then, of course, her Super Bowl appearance was the highest rated Super Bowl halftime show, and actually the ratings for the halftime show were a point or two higher than the actual ratings for the Super Bowl itself. Look it up. Because even the naysayers, the haters, were hoping to see her fail. So they were right in front of the TV with the fans and just the casual people who were beyond half crocked by halftime and just didn't have the energy to get off the couch or reach for the remote and change the channel. It was a captive audience. And the album. And she's topped the chart. She's had a #1 album for the first time in quite a while. And Mr. Lionel right alongside her, Lionel Richie. So the old, I hate saying the old stars, but as you said, 30 years, and in pop standards, by the standards of pop culture and pop music, that's a long time. But it's also a very telling thing that besides Adele, people who grew up as fans under different circumstances, when you listened to the radio, you bought the record, you supported the artist, you joined the fan club, you went to the shows, you participated rather than just download a song and make it your ringtone and then forget who sang it a year later. But, you know, and you've got a different ringtone a year later. There, you know, where there's much more disposable once you get past Gaga and Rihanna and Katy Perry and a handful of the divas and maybe Drake, and who knows where they'll be. You know, there's the occasional comeback like Usher did, but there's not that hardcore. Bruce Springsteen is still up there. His album, last time we talked about it, just come out and I think gone to #1, you know. And his tour is like the biggest thing this summer. The album is selling, and again, I don't know 30 years from now how that will translate with artists. You know, at 30 years from now, well, Madonna might still be, because I think she'll come out in a wheelchair. Nothing, will stop her. But I don't know that everybody will still be.
Let's just hope she doesn't do any more cartwheels.
Well, if she does 30 years from now, I don't think they'll be intentional. I don't think they'll be intentional.
You're right. She may have the emergency brake on.
Right, exactly.
Wheelchair.
It may not be the kind of cartwheel that you want. You know that she wants to play in Russia as part of her tour. She wants to play in Iran and Syria. It's online today. It is a legitimate fact. She wants to tour in Iran and Syria. Wow. She wants to play in Russia and lecture them on their anti-gay policies. In Russia. She's really got a pair on her. Nothing much has really changed. And I think she's reclaiming from Lady Gaga, who I am a fan of, but let's face it, Gaga in many ways was the modern version of Madonna. Mm-hmm. The other day, I was just reclining in my bedroom, and Love Game came on. Let Me Take a Ride on Your Disco Stick. And I'm listening to Gaga intently for the first time, which I generally don't. And her recitation of the lyrics and even the intonations of her voice was deliberately an homage to Madonna. You would swear that was a Madonna record. She really went out of her way. And I think Madonna just got tired and is in a position to reclaim. And she has. She's reclaimed the crown, at least for now, and is going out of her way now in the way that Gaga went to Washington lecturing people about gay marriage and all this kind of thing. And Madonna was the diva of that crowd before Gaga was. So Madonna's suddenly announcing that she's going to Iran and Syria, which is a little bit scary. I hope you've got really good security guards, young lady.
Serious.
But I think she knows. And even if she doesn't go, one thing I admire about her is she certainly knows how to generate a headline. Because even if she doesn't go now, it's plastered all over. That's all the internet is buzzing about now.
What if she got taken hostage? Would we go to war to save her?
I think we might have to send in the Avengers. Marvel, to promote the movie, would probably have to send in Captain America and Iron Man and the Hulk and Thor and all those guys to resuscitate her. It might, to rescue her. I don't think they'd want her. I think they'd throw her back after she started making demands and what have you. But I doubt that would happen. But in spite of a film career that has eluded her, with a few notable exceptions, she's still the queen of pop. She really is. Now, someone whose film career didn't totally elude her, who we spoke about a lot last time, Whitney Houston, and there's been a whole deluge of stuff about her death and why she died, and we even discussed various theories in the Was Whitney Houston Gay episode last time, which I heard a lot of feedback from people, some that totally agreed with it and some that were just totally outraged that we even chose to discuss it. But it is a reality. It is a possibility. I didn't make it up. I was not the first to say these things. I referred to people online. But Whitney, with The Bodyguard, which since the death, The Bodyguard had played a one-night stand, I think, in a whole bunch of theaters, one night only, or it might be this week. And if you go to Netflix, there's a very long wait for The Bodyguard, for The Preacher's Wife, for a lot of the films that she did, Waiting to Exhale. And they have just released the trailer for Sparkle, which is the film she made, I guess, in the past year, within the past year.
Sparkle?
She did a remake of Sparkle, which was an 80s film with Irene Cara, I think, was in it. Remember Irene Cara?
Yeah, I remember her.
You should, because you did that Flashdance hot
and I also did
remix.
I also did a remix
with Irene Cara. That's right. Cara. Okay, that's right. It's staring right up at me on the Strong Island Wall of Fame in front of me, which maybe we'll take you on a tour of.
But I did not meet her. I just worked on the record.
Mm-hmm,
but yes, I was a big fan of Irene Cara.
Right.
Fame,
well,
big song.
Sparkle was a 1980s movie. I never saw it.
Me neither.
It was like Dreamgirls, but not quite as extreme as Dreamgirls, supposedly based on the story of the Supremes. People just cannot get away. As big as icons the Beatles were, is how big, iconically, the Supremes, as the breakthrough black act that really brought black faces onto television from coast to coast and got people that would not normally buy a record by an artist of color, because Diana Ross was such a crossover type of image. And Sparkle is that film. Now, of course, Whitney was a little bit old. She is not one of the three girls in the film. I believe she plays a mom or an aunt, most likely a stage mother, I would imagine, because she's got a lot of good experience with stage mothering from all the stories about her mom, Sissy Houston, being problematic to Whitney's career. I don't know that that's true. Sissy Houston is a great artist, but that's what's been out there. And so if Whitney is, I haven't seen it yet, but she will enjoy another resurge of popularity as Sparkle comes out. And that's one film career that actually did jive.
I read an article a couple weeks or a week after Whitney passed. Sissy Houston said that when Whitney was first born, she had a vision that she said her words, the Holy Ghost spoke to her and told her that Whitney would not be on this earth very long. Have you ever heard that?
No, I never have. It's very convenient to say that after someone has passed.
Exactly.
I'm curious why
you're right.
you wouldn't say that. And, I am a spiritual person, and I don't think a lot of people know that underneath the facade, I am a spiritual person. In the 1970s, I belonged to the Way Ministry, which was a Midwestern. We studied the Greek and Aramaic texts of the Bibles, the laying on of hands, speaking in tongues, which I do, and spirit speaking verbally is like God being a man up in the heavens. I mean, everybody's entitled, and this is certainly not a religious show. Spirit does not have emotion. Emotion is what we're trapped with in the flesh until the spirit is released. That's all brain generated. Mm-hmm. And a spirit does not have a brain because it's spirit. A brain is what a flesh body needs to function and to know what it's doing. A spirit is a whole ethereal.
It's like an energy.
It's there's an entity there, and we don't really know. Mm-hmm. We don't really know, but I do know that there's not a man in a cloud with a big long beard holding tablets, lecturing people and getting angry, because I can't imagine spirit that is not in the flesh, because the flesh is weak, and the flesh gets angry, and the flesh gets jealous, and the flesh gets stupid, and the flesh gets drunk, and the flesh gets high on drugs, and spirit is just subjected to all of that, because while you're alive, the spirit's there. So saying that the Holy Ghost spoke to her...
So you don't like the word spoke. But,
well, I know what she means, but there are also people that say that they hear from relatives, that they communicate with relatives. And, God bless if that's true. I don't know about that, but I do know that a spirit doesn't have a mouth or teeth to enunciate, and memories at that point probably manifest themselves into something else. I can't believe that this is what we're talking about.
I know. I just
I'm strung out on the scene, but you brought it up, and that's my feeling. Maybe Sissy, because we can generate things in ourselves, just as druggies do when they do too much drugs, and it unleashes parts of the brain, and they could swear that there's giant spiders that are about to attack him, and all the hippie stuff that you used to hear of weasels ripped my flesh and all this kind of thing. So the brain is capable. We only use a very small portion of the brain.
Absolutely. And she said she never told anybody about this. So like you said, I mean, who knows?
So if this is such a deep, personal mother-child thing, why are you sharing it with the world after your child's dead?
Well...
I mean, why? What does it accomplish? Does it save anything now?
Wouldn't
it have saved her more if you had shared this and the world heard about it?
You can't tell somebody that, oh, by the way, honey, when you were born, the Lord told me that you wouldn't be here very long.
Well, I
don't know about
far
that.
be it from me to judge, and that's one thing that certain type of Bible thumpers do, is they sit in judgment because they think they are entitled to sit in judgment when the Bible actually says, let no man sit in judgment lest he be judged. And they should really read their Bibles. You know, one of the funniest things with the Bible, and then we'll get off of this because it's just crazy. In the late 70s, a pop singer named Anita Bryant, who had become a spokesperson for the orange juice business, went on a gay-bashing, anti-gay campaign, which people do periodically from time to time to get attention and to play to that Bible Belt audience. And she was quoting old scripture from the Old Testament, which is supposed to actually fall away with the arrival of Christ. And, you know, and men lay down with men and blah, 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 which described the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, which was destroyed not because men were laying down with men, but because they worshipped a false god. And an interviewer went up to her and said, Miss Bryant, now Anita Bryant would come out and do these shows like she did with the big bouffant hair, tons of makeup on her and all this kind of thing. And the guy said, you know, Miss Bryant, in the Old Testament it says, she who adorns herself with paints is like unto a whore, with paints meaning makeup. And she turned around to the guy and she said, well, you know, John, you can't take everything in the Bible literally. In other words, she was saying, I'll take what suits my purposes, and the part about adorning yourself with paints and being like unto a whore, well, I'm going to ignore that part. So people, you know, and Sissy Houston, I'm sure, is in pain. She did lose her child, and that's got to be a horrible thing, but I don't think at this stage any of that kind of stuff should be played out. Maybe it makes her feel better to say that. Maybe she feels she can justify the sad way that Whitney went, because I don't think the Holy Ghost had her laying in the bathtub face down with cocaine in her system as part of the program. I don't think that is ordained. I don't think that people's paths are ordained, that she was destined, preordained. That is nonsense, in my opinion. I think you have a free choice every day you get out of bed to do whatever you want to do. If you want to pick up a gun and put it to your head, if you want to do drugs and OD, you're making a choice. Nobody's forcing you. God didn't let this happen. You've got free will. You've got free will. Otherwise, we'd all be puppets, and God would be we'd be robots, and we wouldn't even be discussing it. So people always want to say, why did God let, you know, he was asleep at the wheel. He's testing us. No, he's not testing us. People make their own choices every day of the week. They make their own choices every day of the week. True. And that's enough of the Bible thumping, because we may do a Bible thumping program on here at some point.
No, we don't. We're not
in the future.
I told you we don't mean
right after the political crossfire show with LaLumia and LaSerra.
I love how you say crossfire. You turn it into a battle.
Yeah. Well, that's what crossfire is. That's what they used to have.
I don't want a battle.
I don't either. Peace and love. Peace and love. Speaking of battles, Best Buy is going under. How's that for getting off the
the
Bible
we
thumping?
Saw that coming. You know, I mean,
well, they didn't see it coming.
Circuit City, you know, Best Buy, all these super warehouses that are selling everything for dollars above cost. Eventually, you're going to go out of business. So.
Well, you know, is that really the problem, or is it technology, and is it the internet? Constantly on various websites, industry websites, Best Buy is referred to as Amazon.com's showroom. Have you ever heard that phrase?
No.
What it means is nobody wants to buy a big screen TV or a computer or a laptop sight unseen just because they see it on Amazon. So they write down the model, they go to Best Buy, they test drive it, they check it out, they walk back out the door without buying anything, go home, and then order it. So it's become a showroom, which doesn't pay their bills. People wander in, oh, that's the one I saw. You know, and they're not going to tell the salesman. They're going to let the poor sales guy go through every aspect of everything and think he's clinched the sale. Yeah, I really, really like this. I really have to own this. And he's salivating about his commission. And they turn around and walk out the door and go home and buy it on Amazon, cheaper.
That's been around a long time, because I remember back in the day, there used to be a company, I think they're still in business, called Dial-A-Brand. And my mom many times used to go, you look at appliances, you write down the model number, you come home, you dial a brand, and they give you a discount price and
Right.
you come and deliver it.
To make the sale.
It's the same thing.
To
And,
make the
and I've
sale.
done that too with like Sam Ash, your Guitar Center. You know, I go look at the equipment and play around with it. I listen to it because I can't listen to it online.
Right.
You know, so, but you can't beat it. You buy it online, there's no tax, it's free shipping, and sometimes they even break up the payments with no interest. It's like
Right. They do whatever they got to do because everybody's fighting to get a piece of the piece of the dollar.
We're all guilty of that.
Right,
you know?
to some extent. I mean, for myself, I still buy physical technology products, PC Richard or what have you. I still support artists and buy the CDs if it's an artist that I like. And as a result of that, a certain generation, as we just spoke about a little while ago with the example of Madonna and Lionel Richie, we own the charts. And I had predicted this on the Velvet Rope website in the 90s and said that the Barry Manilow generation will inherit the bestseller charts in about 10 years. And that's exactly what has happened, because I don't think it's that 14-year-old kid that's buying Adele. I mean, she has a teen following. She is getting played on the pop stations, but I think it's a slightly older demographic that's buying the Adele album, that's buying that Lionel Richie country album, that's buying the Madonna album. So, I mean, we are taking over because the charts really are still what people live and die by, and it's still what they quote. And Billboard has been dominated by Adele, Madonna, and Lionel Richie in recent times. The last thing we'll mention, because we're just about out of time on another never-ending Strong Island scene where we covered like 9,000 topics in less than an hour. Weird Al is suing Sony Music for not paying him for downloads, proper accounting of all the outlets like Spotify, and for lawsuits that were launched against illegal websites they collected money for. That was never paid out to artists, and I never really thought about that when they go after these, what was it, Gunzilla or Newtzilla? What was the name of the one? And LimeWire and all these other guys that they went after, and when they went after Napster, and they collect settlements in a lot of cases, and Guntilla or something like that, I think it was called. And it never really dawned on me. I didn't really think it through until my stuff started showing up online, especially the Psychotic Frog stuff, and never really getting a real accounting of anything, just seeing that it's everywhere, and that whenever I would hear from someone online, oh, Jimmy, I got your album. I got that single. I got this. And you have no clue where it's going or, you know. So more power to Weird Al, because it's a very crazy, zany world out there for a recording artist right now to keep track of. I guess it would be like your adventures with ZYX back in the old days. Then they're sticking the same track on a million compilation albums.
Oh, my God.
They probably have them all up online right now and what have you. And there's, you know, no accounting. Who knows? Welcome to the world of the music
It's
business.
amazing. It's
It is
amazing.
just wonderful.
And you know, they do that and they put it on a million compilations, and then they have something to justify some sort of loss to say, okay, well, you didn't make any money because the compilation didn't, you know, sell, and now your song is on 10 compilations, you didn't make any money.
But
off
at the
all
same
10.
time, the compilations sold X amount of copies in each case and continue to sell over a period of time once they're placed on line like an Amazon,
that's where it got
or,
tricky.
or an iTunes, and they may still be downloading your tracks. And
It's
how do
correct.
you find that out without hiring a lawyer
You
or
can't.
finding someone inside who has access to the dailies or the monthlies or even the yearlies of what's sold? It's
You have
really
to hire a lawyer.
it's
And
really an impossible, and then you have to pay a lawyer, and you don't know if the amount of money you're going to get back is even going to cover
exactly
the cost of the lawyer. And I just lost myself here. Where are we? There we go. Okay, but believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, we have 1 minute to go. We have barreled our way through all the pop culture events and phenomena and talking points of April 2012. Always a pleasure chatting with Bobby LaSerra on Strong Island Scene. Any last words?
No, it was a pleasure. Just be on the lookout for the new quarterly magazine. It'll be also available online. It's called Strong Island Inc., and it tells everybody a little bit all about Strong Island, what we do here, the radio, television, the music, the clothes, and featured articles, reviews, write-ups.
I'm subscribing
Check it out.
immediately. I live for physical media, So I can't wait to get my first copy of Strong Island Ink, and I'm sure you guys are all looking forward to it. A month from now, May Day or thereabouts, we'll see you again with the May edition of Strong Island Scene. Enjoy and thank you for watching.
We out.